Welcome, dearly beloved anointed ones. Be careful who you investigate. Some people aren't hiding skeletons, they're hiding kingdoms. Imagine this. A seasoned private investigator, trained, meticulous, battle-worn from years of digging into scandals, secrets and shame, takes on your case, expecting to uncover the usual. Unpaid debts, awkward exes, maybe a forgotten Twitter rant from 2011. But halfway through, they pause. Not because they found dirt, but because they found something they weren't trained for. Not scandal, not crime, power, purpose, prophecy. According to psychological profiling studies, over 85% of people wear a version of themselves just convincing enough to avoid being truly seen. But you broke that system. You're not living a double life, you're living a depth life. Every layer deeper they dig, the more they realize they're in over their head. This wasn't a background check. It was a cosmic excavation. And Buddy the shovel broke. They came for answers. But what they uncovered was a coded existence that doesn't fit in any database. And somewhere between your silence and your scars, they muttered, "Oh no, we're not dealing with a subject. We're dealing with a phenomenon." So buckle in, because what the investigator found about you might just make the watchers start watching their own backs. Number 1, your trauma wasn't a phase. It was an initiation ritual the universe didn't explain. You didn't just go through pain, you were thrown into it like it was a test no one warned you about. While others were given time to process, you were handed chaos, raw and unfiltered. People saw you crumble and assumed that was the end of the story. What they missed was that the fall was the beginning of your formation, not your failure. You weren't just broken. You were being initiated without explanation, without ceremony, and definitely without consent. Life didn't ask if you were ready. It tore the ground from under you and waited to see what you'd do next. And instead of becoming bitter, you studied the destruction. You started to understand the language of wounds. You became fluent in disappointment, and somehow turned that fluency into wisdom most people will never touch. You started recognizing things in people before they even spoke. You began feeling shifts in energy before the room even changed. That's not intuition by accident. That's pattern recognition earned through survival. That's a skill forged in discomfort. The kind of skill that can't be taught, only earned through fire. Others try to heal and move on. You didn't move on, you evolved. You didn't stitch your soul back the way it was. You redesigned it. You crafted something that can never again be broken in the same place. That's not healing, that's alchemy. That's turning pain into power without trying to make it pretty. The private investigator expected to find damage. Instead, they found design. They were looking for cracks, but they found architecture. You didn't come out of your past with baggage. You came out with blueprints. Your trauma didn't destroy you. It initiated you into a level of awareness, insight, and power that most people spend a lifetime trying to fake. And the wildest part, you did it all quietly. No announcement, no pity party, just raw transformation. Number 2. You operate in dual realms, the visible world and the one only those who've bled quietly can access. You don't just exist in one world, you operate in 2, maybe more. There's the visible everyday world that everyone else lives in, the world of small talk, errands, social masks and surface-level truths. Then there's the other world you walk through quietly, the one beneath all that, the one most people avoid or pretend doesn't exist. That's where you live for real. You see what others miss. You pick up on things they never notice. The hesitation in a voice, the shift in someone's tone, the weight behind a glance. It's not just being observant, it's a deeper knowing. You sense energy before people even speak. You feel tension that hasn't been acknowledged yet. You're tuned into the emotional undercurrents that drive everything, even when everyone else is still focused on what's being said out loud. The investigator thought they were stepping into another routine job. Read the facts, follow the trail, deliver the dirt. But the moment they started pulling at your story, they realized they were in uncharted territory. The rules didn't apply to you. You weren't just a subject, you were an anomaly. Your choices didn't follow a formula. Your reactions didn't match your circumstances. You weren't surviving, you were navigating a different map entirely. You don't belong to categories, you don't tick boxes, you cross thresholds. That kind of presence makes people uncomfortable because they can't define it. They can't contain it. It doesn't play by their expectations. The investigator didn't find inconsistencies in your story. They found depth they couldn't label. You're not mysterious by choice. You're layered by design. The truth is, most people have never met someone like you. Not because you're trying to be unique, but because you've done inner work most people run from. You've explored places within yourself that others never dare to touch. You don't live on the surface. You live in the understanding. And that's something no report could capture. Number 3, they found out you weren't healing. You were evolving into something not designed for comfort. They thought you were healing like you were trying to get back to the old version of yourself, the one from before everything went sideways. But what they didn't realize is that going back was never the goal. That version of you didn't survive. That version of you wasn't built for what came next. You weren't healing to return to normal. You were breaking apart what no longer served you and evolving into something entirely different. The private investigator expected to find a recovery story. They expected the usual therapy appointments, self-help books, maybe a few motivational quotes. Instead, they found a person who had gone deeper than that. You weren't just patching up wounds. You were learning the language of your pain, asking it questions and letting it sharpen you. You didn't come out with a smile slapped over your scars. You came out with clarity, precision, and a whole new operating system. There was nothing soft or passive about the process. You didn't sit around hoping for closure. You pulled your own truth out of the wreckage and rewired your thinking from the ground up. The old framework, how you saw the world, how you let people treat you, how you thought about your worth, got demolished. Not gently, not gracefully, but completely. You turned the chaos into intelligence. You stopped seeing your pain as something to fix and started using it as a filter. It taught you what to pay attention to, what to walk away from, who to never let in again. You became the kind of person who doesn't beg to be understood. You became someone who understands deeply, instinctively, relentlessly. That's power. Quiet, undeniable power. The investigator didn't find someone on a healing journey. They found someone who had mutated, shifted, leveled up. They came looking for brokenness and left facing something unshakable. You didn't just bounce back. You changed form, and no one was ready for that. Number 4, your silence wasn't absence, it was containment. Your silence wasn't about shutting down. It wasn't avoidance, it wasn't weakness, it was strategy. While others rushed to speak, defend, or explain themselves, you learned the power of holding your fire. You knew that not every battle is won with noise. Some are won with restraint, with watching, with letting the truth sharpen itself in your quiet. People misunderstood your silence. They assumed you had nothing to say, or worse, nothing to offer. But what they didn't understand was that your silence wasn't a void. It was a vault, a place where truths too heavy for shallow minds were stored. Truths that could unravel illusions, crack identities, and shift entire dynamics if ever released. You weren't empty. You were full of things the world wasn't ready to handle. There's a kind of wisdom that only comes when you stop talking and start listening. Listening to people's energy, to what's not being said, to the patterns that words try to hide. You did that. You mastered it. While others were broadcasting, you were downloading. You saw the games being played long before anyone admitted they were even playing. And in that stillness, you built your edge. You didn't stay silent because you were afraid. You stayed silent because you understood timing. You knew that explosions lose their impact if they're triggered too early. Some truths are nuclear. You knew exactly when and how to let them out, but only when the moment was right. And if it never came, you were at peace with that too. Not every truth needs to be spoken. Some just need to be carried with the kind of discipline that terrifies people. That's what shook the investigator. They expected either drama or vulnerability. They weren't prepared for containment. For someone who could sit across from them holding the emotional equivalent of dynamite and still offer a calm smile. You weren't looking for pity or to prove anything. You were already 10 moves ahead, speaking fluent restraint in a world obsessed with noise. Your silence was never a weakness. It was weight, density, controlled force, the kind of silence that makes people nervous, not because it's empty, but because they know, deep down, something powerful lives inside it. And when the time comes, if it ever does, your words won't just speak, they'll detonate. Number 5. They thought you were protecting secrets. Turns out you were the secret. They came digging through your past, expecting to uncover something hidden, scandals, regrets, maybe some buried shame you worked hard to keep out of sight. But what they didn't expect was that the real story wasn't in what you'd done. It was in who you are. You weren't guarding information. You are the information. Coded, layered, and unreadable to anyone who hasn't earned the access. They thought the mystery was in the events, in timelines, in receipts. But your life can't be traced with files or pieced together with data because you don't live linearly. You live with depth. You're not a sum of experiences. You're a system of meaning. And unless someone knows how to see, not just look, they'll never get it. You don't hand yourself over freely. You're not an open book. You're a locked vault with no visible keyhole. Every part of you, every instinct, every boundary is intentional. You've learned that some people come close just to take. So you adapted. You became selective. Your truth isn't something people can demand. It's something they unlock through patience, through integrity, through showing up when there's nothing to gain. And that's where they got it wrong. The investigator thought the challenge was uncovering what you were hiding. But the truth is, you weren't hiding. You were unreadable by design, a living encryption, a soul structured like a cipher. They couldn't trace your essence with questions or surveillance because the answers weren't in your words or actions. They were in your energy, your silence, your presence, things no file can measure. To understand you, someone would have to go beyond proof. They'd have to feel you, earn your trust. Decipher not just what happened to you, but what you became because of it. That takes more than skill. It takes alignment, and that's rare. So no, you weren't protecting secrets. You were the secret. And unless someone has the right key, one made of truth, patience, and earned respect, you remain exactly as you were meant to be, unsolved. Number 6. They traced your scars like crime scenes, only to realize each one was a consecrated shrine. They approached your story like investigators at a crime scene, tracing every scar like it held a confession. They catalogued your heartbreaks, your betrayals, your losses, thinking they could map out your vulnerabilities like evidence. They expected to find damage that explained your strength as compensation. They thought your strength was born out of desperation, but they were wrong. What they found wasn't evidence of a breakdown. It was evidence of rebirth. Those scars weren't proof of pain, they were proof of endurance, each one a mark of something you lived through and refused to let define you. They didn't find open wounds, they found closed chapters, and each one wasn't just healed, it was hallowed. They were looking for weakness. They assumed your past would expose soft spots or broken edges they could analyze, but your pain didn't just shape you, it sanctified you. It refined you. The way fire refines gold. It burned away what wasn't real, and what remained wasn't fragile. What remained was sacred. Every scar they touched carried a memory, yes, but more importantly, it carried meaning. Not just what happened to you, but what you did with it. You didn't let pain stop you. You let it instruct you. You built rituals around recovery. You created strength not from pretending you were fine, but from facing the truth and walking through it anyway. They didn't expect to find reverence. They didn't expect to feel small in the presence of your resilience. But that's what happened. Because your story isn't a collection of sad events, it's a series of initiations. And each time life tried to end you, you didn't just survive. You sacralized the experience. You turned it into wisdom, into grace, into something untouchable. What they thought were bruises were actually battle honors. What they assumed were weak points were sacred sites. They wanted to see where you were broken. Instead, they found shrines. Number 7. You turned abandonment into sovereignty. They thought they were going to meet someone still carrying the ache of being left behind, someone shaped by rejection, clinging to whatever scraps of love or approval came their way. But that version of you didn't survive the abandonment. That version was burned to the ground. What rose in its place wasn't a victim. It was a sovereign force. You didn't wait to be chosen again. You chose yourself. Being abandoned didn't break you. It broke the illusion that you needed someone else to give you worth. And once that illusion was gone, something rare happened. You stopped reaching outward and started building inward. No begging, no performing. No more shrinking to stay acceptable in rooms that only loved you on their terms. You left those rooms and built your own palace, with your own rules, your own voice, and your own damn throne. You didn't patch the hole that abandonment left. You turned it into a door, and through that door you walked into sovereignty. You became emotionally self-sustaining, not closed off, but unowned. No one's approval could sway your direction anymore. No one's absence could shake your identity. You didn't become numb. You became unshakable. They expected to find a person still grieving the people who walked away. What they found was someone who no longer waits at doors that close, someone who understands that being left isn't always loss, it's often liberation. Because sometimes the most painful rejection is the beginning of your authority. You stopped asking why they didn't stay. You started asking why you ever thought they were your home. And from that question forward, everything changed. You began to source your worth from the truth of who you are, not who stuck around to validate it. That's what caught them off guard. You didn't just survive abandonment, you transmuted it. You took the exile and turned it into empire. You didn't come back trying to prove your value, you embodied it. They expected a broken soul. Instead, they found a ruler of inner territory so expansive, not even the silence of others could echo loud enough to reach you anymore. Number 8, you were never hiding, you were observing. They believed they had uncovered you, like peeling back a layer to reveal what was beneath, exposing secrets and vulnerabilities hidden in shadows. But the truth is, you were never hiding. You weren't playing a game of concealment, you were simply watching, always watching, not from the sidelines, but from the center of the scene, fully aware, fully present. You've been observing far longer and deeper than anyone could guess. While they scrambled to catch glimpses, you held steady, absorbing everything. The nuances in conversations, the shifts in body language, the quiet lies that slip through cracks. You weren't caught off guard because you never left your post. You weren't blindsided because you were already prepared. Your silence isn't absence, it's attentiveness. Your stillness isn't ignorance, it's mastery. You've trained yourself to see beneath the surface, to read between the lines, to notice what others don't even realize is there. You've watched patterns repeat, motives reveal themselves, facades crumble, all without saying a word. They thought uncovering you meant finding something you wanted to hide. But the real discovery is that you've been the watcher all along. You weren't the subject, you were the observer. The one holding the map while others wandered lost. The one who knew the ending before the story even began. You don't reveal yourself easily because you understand the power in timing and trust. You don't rush into exposure because you know that being seen is a privilege, not a right. People stumble into your field of vision thinking they caught you off guard. Instead, they stepped right where you wanted them, where you could see everything and decide what to reveal, when, and to whom. This isn't just awareness, it's sovereignty. You aren't just surviving the game, you're controlling it. And the ones who thought they uncovered you, they didn't realize they were the ones being watched all along. Number 9, they mistook your empathy for softness until they realized it was forged from confrontation with your own shadows. They looked at your empathy and saw vulnerability. They thought your kindness meant you were fragile, easily broken, or too gentle to stand firm. But what they didn't see was the fire behind it. The hard-earned strength forged in the darkest battles you fought within yourself. Your empathy wasn't a weakness, it was armor, forged in the heat of confronting your own shadows. You didn't develop compassion by accident or because life was easy. You faced your own fears, doubts, and insecurities head-on. You wrestled with the parts of yourself that others try to bury or ignore, the anger, the grief, the loneliness that could have crushed you. And you didn't run from those monsters. You looked them square in the eye, learned their names, and made peace with them. That confrontation created a deep well of understanding and resilience. Because of that, you don't flinch when others bring their pain near. You don't recoil or turn away from suffering. You meet it with an open heart because you know what it's like to live in the middle of your own storm. You understand that pain is messy, complicated, and sometimes relentless. Your empathy isn't about pity, it's about connection, strength, and the courage to stand alongside others without losing yourself. Those who mistook your empathy for softness learned the hard way that it's anything but. It's a battlefield scar wrapped in grace. It's knowing how fierce you can be while still offering tenderness. Your empathy is a choice, a conscious decision to face the hard parts of life inside and out without losing your edge. In the end, your kindness isn't fragile, it's fearless. It's the proof that true strength doesn't come from avoiding darkness, but from embracing it and still choosing to shine. Number 10, your past isn't a record, it's a spellbook. Your past isn't a dusty archive of mistakes and missteps. It's a living spellbook, carefully written in the ink of experience and pain. Every betrayal you endured, every heartbreak that threatened to undo you wasn't a mark against you. It was part of a ritual, a necessary step in your transformation. You didn't just survive those moments, you used them as spells to rewrite your story. Most people carry their past like a chain, dragging the weight of regret and shame behind them. But you turned it into a source of power. Each failure, each moment where trust was broken wasn't just a wound, it was a lesson, a chant, a coded instruction on how to become stronger, wiser, and more alive. You didn't flinch when life hit hard. Instead, you took those blows and inscribed them into your identity, creating a language only you understand. This spellbook isn't open to just anyone. It's not a public record you share casually. It's a private tome that you consult when you need strength or clarity. When life tries to break you again, you don't panic. You flip through your pages, calling on the rituals you've mastered. Forgiveness, resilience, reinvention. You summon the wisdom born from your darkest hours, transforming pain into purpose. The investigator thought they could piece together your past like a crime scene, finding clues to explain who you are. But your history isn't a cold case, it's a sacred text. It's living proof that transformation isn't about avoiding mistakes, but about learning the secret language they teach. You didn't just endure your story, you authored it, spell by spell, ritual by ritual. Your past is more than a record. It's your power source, your guide, your alchemy. And those who try to read it like a history book miss the real magic. You've become a master of transformation, turning every hardship into a catalyst for rebirth. Number 11. They were ready to expose you, but got exposed instead. They came with weapons drawn, convinced they'd unveil your secrets and break you down. Their goal was to strip away your defenses, to reveal what you thought was safely hidden. But when they looked closely, what they didn't expect was that you would be the one holding the mirror. Your reflection caught them off guard, shining a light on their own cracks and contradictions. Suddenly, the hunter became the hunted. The investigator who thought they were in control found themselves under scrutiny, forced to confront parts of themselves they'd long buried or denied. The questions they came to ask about you turned inward, and the truths they thought were yours to reveal became theirs to face. You didn't just deflect their probe, you reflected it. You held up your truth so clearly and unapologetically that it became impossible for them to keep their own shadows hidden. They weren't prepared for the intensity of their own unraveling, the way your resilience and clarity exposed their insecurities, their biases, and their blind spots. They wanted to expose weakness, but what they uncovered was strength. Strength that forced them to look in the mirror and question who they really were. They expected to break you. Instead, they broke their own illusions. In that moment, you became not just the subject of investigation, but the investigator. The one who commands the room not by force, but by unwavering presence. You made them realize that exposure isn't a one-way street. That when you stand firm in your truth, you don't just survive scrutiny, you turn it back on those who try to wield it against you. They thought they held the power, but the real power was in your reflection, unshakable, unyielding, and impossible to ignore. Number 12, you didn't chase destiny, you became the gravitational force pulling it in. You didn't sit back waiting for destiny to find you, hoping it would eventually show up like some random event. You became the force that draws destiny toward you, the magnetic center around which everything else orbits. While others try to trace your path with neat lines and predictable patterns, your trajectory laughs at their attempts, bending time and logic like a master illusionist rewriting the rules of the game. People expect life to move in straight lines, cause and effect, step by step. But your journey isn't linear. It twists, folds, and reshapes itself with an energy that defies convention. You're not a passenger on the road of fate. You're the architect designing the map as you move. The universe isn't handing you a script. You're penning it yourself, scene by scene. This kind of power doesn't come from luck or chance. It comes from deliberate choice and unwavering belief in your own agency. You don't wait for opportunities. You pull them toward you with intention. You don't settle for what's given. You create what's possible. Your will is a force of gravity, bending the fabric of circumstances to align with your vision. They try to decode your moves as if they were predictable equations, but your reality laughs at formulas. Your path is not a path others can walk or understand easily. It requires a new language, a language of boldness, resilience, and fierce creativity that only you speak fluently. So, when they look at you and try to fit you into their neat boxes of destiny and fate, remember, you don't chase, you attract. You don't follow, you lead, and in doing so, you don't just live your story, you bend time, break expectations, and rewrite what was supposed to be possible all along. Number 13. You weren't chosen for your light, you were chosen because you mastered your darkness. They say the chosen ones shine bright, glowing with an effortless light that draws everyone near. But that's the easy story, the shallow version people want to believe. You weren't chosen for your light. You were chosen because you mastered your darkness. While others run from the void, afraid of what lurks in the shadows, you walked into it head first. You faced your fears, your doubts, your worst instincts, and didn't just survive them, but learned to navigate by them. Light is predictable. It follows rules, reflects what's around it, and offers comfort. Darkness, though? Darkness is where the real work happens. It's messy, uncomfortable, and chaotic. But it's also where you find the truths no light can reveal. The darkness tested you, stripped away illusions, and forced you to confront what most people hide from, even themselves. Your power doesn't come from inherited morals or beliefs passed down like a family heirloom. It comes from forging your own compass deep inside the void. You didn't borrow someone else's map for right and wrong. You made one. That map is imperfect, real, and earned. It's the product of wrestling with your inner demons and coming out on the other side with clarity that can't be taught or bought. People are drawn to light because it's easy to admire, but they respect power that's been tempered in darkness because it's authentic and unshakable. You've stared into the abyss, felt its cold breath, and returned not broken but whole, with a strength that comes from owning every part of yourself, even the parts others fear to face. So yes, you were chosen. Not for some radiant glow, but for the way you mastered the shadows. Your light isn't a mask, it's a reflection of the depth you've journeyed through. And that depth, that darkness you've claimed, is where your true power lives. Number 14, they looked for leverage and found legacy. They came expecting to find leverage, something they could use to control you, shame you, or tear you down. They searched for skeletons rattling in the closet, expecting dirt, weakness, or secrets that would tip the scales in their favor. But what they uncovered wasn't leverage, it was legacy. What they thought were hidden flaws were actually the foundation stones of something far greater. You don't carry shame as baggage, you carry blueprints, detailed plans etched in experience, forged by struggle and built to last. Every so-called mistake, every failure, every setback was never a mark against you. It was an essential part of building an empire only you could envision. While others collect regrets, you collect knowledge and power. You weren't hiding shame, you were incubating a revolution. Legacy isn't about what you keep quiet, it's about what you build quietly, without needing approval, recognition, or applause. It's about the invisible work that shapes future generations and shifts the culture around you. What they mistook for skeletons were the seeds of your uprising, the cornerstones of a kingdom rising from resilience, wisdom, and relentless vision. They thought exposure would weaken you, but instead it illuminated the scope of your impact. You aren't just surviving your past, you're rewriting the future. What they uncovered wasn't dirt, it was dynamite. You hold power not because you avoid mistakes, but because you transform them into revolution. They looked for leverage and found a legacy that no one can dismantle. You weren't just hiding secrets, you were quietly building an empire that will echo long after the noise dies down. In the end, what they thought they'd uncover was never just about facts or secrets. It was about confronting a force far greater than they anticipated. You aren't a puzzle to be solved or a story to be explained. You are a living paradox, simultaneously fragile and unbreakable, silent yet commanding, hidden yet impossible to ignore. Every attempt to expose you only reveals how much depth and power lie beneath the surface. You don't just exist, you reshape reality around you, rewriting the rules and demanding respect on your own terms. This isn't a tale of someone who was simply found, it's the story of someone who was never meant to be understood by the faint of heart. You are the secret, the storm, and the sovereignty. And anyone who tries to unravel you will discover they've stepped into a force that cannot be contained or controlled. Your true legacy is this, not in what can be seen or spoken, but in the unshakable presence you carry and the undeniable truth that some powers are meant to remain eternally beyond reach. If this resonated with you, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and join the journey. There's so much more waiting just beneath the surface. Like this video if it opened your eyes, drop a comment to share your thoughts or experiences and share it with someone who needs to hear this truth today. Your support means everything, and together we're uncovering stories that refuse to be silenced. Let's keep the conversation alive.